So we'll have the last decline for gold and silver, can bring you back to 1600, maybe to 1500 briefly, and then it will turn and it will run. People never understand. So how can gold be a great beneficiary of this change while gold is going down now? And we could have a move away from our dollar-based system to a system which is introduced by the BRICS countries, and they will say we will use our own system from now. And we see the first indications. We see the trading between the BRICS nations, in which Russia is supplying cheap energy to India and China, and India and China are paying with their own currencies. They're not paying with dollars anymore. So I see this as the very first stage of a move away from this dollar system. And I expect that to start later this year. And I think that will, and the catalyst for that move is the current crisis, geopolitical crisis. Because countries east of Germany, like Poland and Hungary, they're adding to their gold reserve, and some are adding 10x to their gold reserves. I think gold in the end, and even silver will have the largest advantage. Silver might benefit most because it's poor man's gold.
Yes.
It's the only metal trading at less than 50% of the 1980 high. There will be shortages in silver. Silver is needed for the green revolution. Gold is not needed. And central banks don't have silver in their vaults to suppress the price. So I think there will be a huge crisis around silver. And when this crisis arrives and the paper silver system breaks down, the COMEX system, you could see silver going from $17 to $100 within 1 or 2 weeks. The first move is the false move. So I think there's a huge demand for physical gold and silver. There was a study by Roman Manley on the physical silver, fleeing from the vaults in London, in Chicago.
Yes.
So pretty soon we might reach a point where there will be maybe a divide between the paper price of silver and the physical price of silver. We've seen the same thing happening with palladium 3 years ago. There were a lot of paper shorts in palladium. Then there was too much demand for the physical stuff. The paper shorts needed to cover, and palladium price went up 3x. And I think we could have the same development in gold, silver, and also platinum. It could happen in the next cycle, and the next cycle is about to start. That's what I think. And you know why? Because the Western countries are still the allies from the Second World War, and they're there to support their big brother, which is the US. So they're not allowed, they're told by the US, don't start buying gold because gold is the anti-dollar. But we stopped selling gold in the West, and we're repatriating our gold from the US. And this has been ongoing for the last 10 years, because this all started after the start of the Lehman crisis. After the start of the Lehman crisis, Russia and China started to buy a lot of physical gold. And now we get into the end game of this US based financial system. And actually, I think these are the first stages of the monetary reset. And when we look back 10 years from now, or 8 years from now, when we look back in 2030, we'll say, Jesus, so much has changed in the last few years. So this will be huge for the world of commodities. We are commodity investors. And I think commodities have had a very, we've been in this long bear market. It was struggling to survive, but everything going on now, the supply and demand, the shortages, which are all expected to arrive around 2025.
Yes.
All countries willing to build their own reserves now. So this will be very good for the mining space. China and Russia understand the precious metal markets very well. They study it very well.
Yeah.
When they really want to do harm to the US, they'll buy all the gold and silver in the world and collapse the paper dollar system that way. But the Chinese understand that will be seen as an act of war. And of course, we know that you have people in the US who say we better fight China now than in 10 years' time, because in 10 years' time, the Chinese Navy and the Chinese military will become stronger. And I'm a bit afraid that the same forces who brought regime change to the Ukraine is documented. The US invested $5 billion in regime change in Ukraine. So the US pushed Ukraine towards war. The same forces can push for war with China as well.